Responding to the most well-known inquiries concerning the COVID-19 pandemic, including the best defensive measures and what's next in engaging the spread. The COVID-19 episode, which started last December, has been proclaimed a pandemic by the World Health Organization. The respiratory disease, which is brought about by an at no other time seen coronavirus, has spread over the world and guaranteed in excess of 6,500 lives in a quarter of a year. The focal point, Wuhan, China, encountered the most noticeably awful of the underlying flare-up, yet now huge, optional flare-ups have happened across Europe and in Iran and South Korea. The WHO was first made aware of the infection on New Year's Eve, and in the next weeks specialists connected it to a group of infections known as coronaviruses, a similar family liable for the illnesses SARS and MERS, just as certain instances of the regular virus. On March 11, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Chief General, reported the episode would be pronounced a pandemic. The first run through a coronavirus has caused such a spread. The circumstance keeps on advancing as more data opens up. We've gathered all that we think about the novel infection, what's next for specialists, and a portion of the means you can take to lessen your hazard. What is a coronavirus? What is COVID-19? What is a pandemic? Where did the infection originate from? What number of affirmed cases and passings have been accounted for? What is the casualty pace of COVID-19? How would we know it's another coronavirus? How is coronavirus spread? Would I be able to get coronavirus from a bundle? What are the side effects of the coronavirus? How irresistible is the coronavirus? Would it be a good idea for you to make your own hand sanitizer? Is there a treatment for the coronavirus? Is there an antibody for coronavirus? Instructions to lessen your danger of the coronavirus. What is a coronavirus? Coronaviruses have a place with a family known as Coronaviridae, and under an electron magnifying lens they look like spiked rings. They're named for these spikes, which structure a radiance or crown is Latin for crown, around their viral envelope. Coronaviruses contain a solitary strand of RNA instead of DNA, which is twofold stranded, inside the envelope and, as an infection, can't duplicate without getting inside living cells and capturing their hardware. The spikes on the viral envelope help coronaviruses tie to cells, which gives them a route in, such as impacting an entryway open with C4. Once inside, they transform the cell into an infection processing plant. The RNA and a few compounds utilize the cell's atomic apparatus to deliver more infections, which are then transported out of the cell to taint different cells. Along these lines, the cycle begins once again. Regularly, these sorts of infections are found in creatures going from domesticated animals and family unit pets to natural life, for example, bats. Some are answerable for infection, similar to the normal virus. At the point when they make the bounce to people, they can cause fever, respiratory ailment and aggravation in the lungs. In immunocompromised people, for example, the old or those with HIV/AIDS, such infections can cause extreme respiratory ailment, bringing about pneumonia and even passing. Incredibly pathogenic coronaviruses were behind the infections SARS, serious intense respiratory disorder, and MERS, Middle East respiratory disorder, over the most recent 2 decades. These infections were effectively transmitted from human to human, however were suspected to have gone through various creature mediators. SARS was followed to civet felines and MERS to dromedary camels. SARS, which appeared in the mid-2000s, contaminated in excess of 8,000 individuals and brought about almost 800 passings. MERS, which showed up in the mid-2010s, tainted very nearly 2,500 individuals and prompted in excess of 850 passings. What is COVID-19? In the beginning of the flare-up, the media, clinical specialists and well-being experts were alluding to the coronavirus as a catch-all term to examine the episode of ailment. Be that as it may, a coronavirus is a sort of infection, as we clarify in the segment above, as opposed to an ailment itself. To lighten the disarray and streamline detailing, WHO has named the new illness COVID-19 for Coronavirus Malady 2019. Having a name matters to forestall the utilization of different names that can be off base or defaming, said Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Chief General of the WHO. It additionally gives us a standard configuration to use for any future coronavirus episodes. The Coronavirus Study Group, some portion of the International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses, was liable for naming the novel coronavirus itself. The epic coronavirus, the one that causes the sickness, is known as SARS-CoV-2. The gathering officially perceives this infection as a sister to extreme intense respiratory disorder coronaviruses SARS-CoV versus the species answerable for the SARS episode in 2002-2003. In this manner, the epic coronavirus is authoritatively named SARS-CoV-2. The sickness brought about by SARS-CoV-2 is authoritatively named COVID-19. What is a pandemic? On March 11, the WHO formally ordered the COVID-19 flare-up a pandemic. Pandemic isn't a word to utilize delicately or recklessly. It is a word that, whenever abused, can cause outlandish dread, or unjustified acknowledgement that the battle is finished, prompting superfluous anguish and passing, said Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Executive General, at a press instructions. Both the CDC and the WHO have various definitions, and in the event that you look in a word reference, you may discover something other than what's expected once more. In the least complex terms, a pandemic can be characterized as an overall flare-up of another ailment. The new is key here, in light of the fact that numerous illnesses persevere in the populace and spread every year. For instance, flu, influenza, taints many individuals consistently and can be found over the world. Not at all like COVID-19, it's been circling in the network for a long time, there's some regular invulnerability to it, and we know such a great amount about it we can secure against it. What does this all mean? All things considered, nothing in your everyday life should change. The COVID-19 infection itself hasn't changed. It hasn't become increasingly risky and hasn't changed to contaminate individuals all the more rapidly. What's more, the danger of being tainted doesn't exponentially build since the word pandemic is being utilized. Understand more, coronavirus as a pandemic, what that implies for you. Where did the infection originate from? The infection seems to have begun in Wuhan, a Chinese city around 650 miles south of Beijing that has a populace of in excess of 11 million individuals. The Huanan seafood wholesale market, which sells fish, just as a panoply of meat from different creatures, including bats, snakes and pangolins, was ensnared in the spread toward the beginning of January. Esteemed clinical diary The Lancet distributed a broad outline of the clinical highlights of patients contaminated with the ailment extending back to December 1, 2019. The absolute first patient recognized had not been presented to the market, recommending the infection may have begun somewhere else and been moved to the market, where it had the option to flourish or bounce from human to creature and back once more. Chinese specialists shut down the market on January 1. Coronavirus updates. Facebook to give representatives $1,000 rewards in the midst of the coronavirus flare-up. Coronavirus lockdowns, who they influence and what you have to know. Coronavirus immunizations and treatment, what you have to know. Wonder's Black Widow film deferred due to coronavirus. On February 22, a report by the Global Times, a Chinese state media distribution, recommended the Huanan fish advertise was not the origination of the ailment, referring to a Chinese report distributed on an open get-to-server in China. Markets have been involved in the birthplace and spread of viral maladies in past plagues, including SARS and MERS. A vast dominant part of the individuals so far affirmed to have contracted the new coronavirus had been to the Huanan Seafood Commercial Center as of late. The market seems, by all accounts, to be a fundamental bit of the riddle, however examination into the imaginable source and associating and understanding zero to the underlying spread is progressing. An early report, distributed in the Journal of Medical Virology on January 22, recommended snakes were the most likely untamed life creature supply for SARS-CoV-2, however the work was adequately invalidated by two further investigations only a day later, on January 23. We haven't seen proof abundant enough to recommend a snake supply for Wuhan coronavirus, said Peter Daszak, leader of philanthropic Eco Health Alliance, which inquires about the connections among human and creature well-being. This work is truly fascinating, yet when we think about the hereditary succession of this new infection with all other known coronaviruses, the entirety of its nearest family members have causes in well-evolved creatures, explicitly bats. Along these lines, moving forward without any more subtleties on testing of creatures in the business sectors, it would seem that we are no nearer to knowing this current infection's characteristic repository. Another gathering of Chinese researchers transferred a paper to preprint site Ziv, having considered the viral hereditary code and contrasted it with the past SARS coronavirus and other bat coronaviruses. They found the hereditary likenesses run profound. The infection imparts 80% of its qualities to the past SARS infection and 96% of its qualities with bat coronaviruses. Critically, the investigation likewise showed the infection can get into and seize cells a similar way SARS did. The insect-eating pangolin, a little, textured well-evolved creature, has likewise been involved in the spread of SARS-CoV-2. As per the New York Times, it might be one of the most dealt creatures on the planet, and it was sold at the Huanan seafood market. The infection likely started in bats, however may have had the option to hang out in the pangolin, before spreading from that creature to people. Scientists alert the full information have not yet been distributed, yet coronaviruses like SARS-CoV-2 have been found in pangolins previously. All great science works off past revelations, and there is still more to find out about the fundamental science of SARS-CoV-2 proceeding. We have a decent handle of precisely which creature vector is liable for transmission, yet early signs are the infection is like those found in bats and likely began from them. What number of affirmed cases and passings have been accounted for? The infection has spread to more than 50 nations since its disclosure in late 2019, and the quantity of cases and passings have been consistently ascending since early January. The most ideal approach to monitor the spread of the infection over the globe is this convenient online device, which is grouping information from various sources including the CDC, the WHO and Chinese well-being experts, and is kept up by Johns Hopkins University. The heft of the affirmed cases and passings have been recorded in China's Hubei territory where the flare-up started. Be that as it may, auxiliary flare-ups have been found in South Korea, Italy and Iran, and a voyage transport, the Diamond Princess, was isolated in the Japanese port of Yokohama for 14 days in February because of a flare-up installed. Altogether, 705 individuals on the boat were seen as contaminated with the coronavirus. What is the casualty rate? One of the most squeezing inquiries for some is, what number of individuals who get COVID-19 really kick the bucket from it? And that is likewise an intense inquiry to reply. Getting an exact casualty rate is significant for strategy creators and well-being specialists to control and counter episodes, however deciding the rate is very mind-boggling. Early gauges, from the WHO, put the rate above 3% dependent on the quantity of passings in contrast with the quantity of cases. All-inclusive, about 3.4% of revealed COVID-19 cases have kicked the bucket, said WHO Chief General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus during a question-and-answer session on March 3. By examination, occasional influenza for the most part murders far less than 1% of those contaminated. However, specialists are unconvinced, in light of the fact that restricted testing over the world, alongside the mellow side effects that many tainted experience proposes, there might be numerous individuals at present undiscovered with COVID-19, and this would push the casualty rate lower. Then again, if passings are under-revealed, maybe 3% is moderate. COVID-19 likewise appears to influence more seasoned ages considerably more harshly. An incredible piece at Stat News separates the socioeconomics of the infection and which gatherings appear to be especially in danger. The main concern, when searching for how destructive COVID-19 may be, a solitary number like 3.4% doesn't recount to the entire story. It's considerably more mind-boggling than that. The casualty rate will change after some time, however the old, more established than 60, and those with fundamental well-being conditions, as cardiovascular infection and diabetes, are at higher hazard. How would we know it's another coronavirus? The Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention dispatched a group of researchers to Wuhan to accumulate data about the new infection and perform testing in patients, wanting to segregate the infection. Their work, distributed in the New England Journal of Medicine on January 24, analyzed examples from 3 patients. Utilizing an electron magnifying instrument, which can resolve pictures of cells and their interior mechanics, and contemplating the hereditary code, the group had the option to envision and hereditarily recognize the novel coronavirus. Understanding the hereditary code helps specialists in 2 different ways. It permits them to make tests that can recognize the infection from tolerant examples, and it gives them potential knowledge into making medications or antibodies. The Peter Doherty Institute in Melbourne, Australia, had the option to distinguish and develop the infection in a lab from a patient example. They reported their disclosure on January 28. This is viewed as one of the significant leaps forward in building up an immunization and gives research facilities the capacity to both evaluate and give master data to well-being specialists and distinguish the infection in patients associated with harboring the ailment. How does the coronavirus spread? This is one of the significant inquiries specialists are as yet striving to reply. The principal contaminations were conceivably the aftereffect of creature-to-human transmission, yet affirmation that human-to-human transmission was acquired in late January. As the infection has spread, nearby transmission has been seen over the world. The absolute most in danger individuals are those that work in medicinal services. The significant concern is medical clinic flare-ups, which were seen with SARS and MERS coronaviruses, said Raina McIntyre, a teacher of worldwide biosecurity at the University of New South Wales, Australia. Fastidious triage and contamination control is expected to forestall these flare-ups and ensure well-being laborers. WHO says the infection can move from individual to individual by means of respiratory beads, when an individual wheezes or hacks. Direct contact with contaminated people. Contact with defiled surfaces and articles. A bunch of infections, including MERS, can make do for periods noticeable all around subsequent to being wheezed or hacked from a tainted person. Albeit late reports recommend the novel coronavirus might be transmitted right now, Chinese Center for Diseases Control and Prevention have repeated there is no proof for this. Writing in The Conversation on February 14, virologists Ian McKay and Catherine Arden clarify no irresistible infection has been recuperated from caught air tests. Coronavirus that causes SARS, found in an electron magnifying instrument. An electron microscopy picture of the coronavirus that causes SARS. Getty Images. To what extent can the coronavirus get by on surfaces? There's still a long way to go about the solidness of this specific infection, however comparative individuals from the coronavirus family have been investigated in detail, including the coronaviruses answerable for the SARS and MERS flare-ups. Especially outstanding is an article distributed on February 6 in the Journal of Hospital Infection, which took a gander at a large group of past investigations, 22 altogether, and discovered coronaviruses may persevere on surfaces for as long as 9 days. A main worry for the general population has been whether worldwide bundle shipments could help spread the infection. Various materials can keep the infection alive for longer outside the body, however a scope of elements should be considered while assessing infection endurance. The CDC is as yet examining this, however has thought of numbers for specific surfaces. On copper and steel it's really commonplace, it's essentially around 2 hours, Robert Redfield, chief of the CDC, disclosed to U.S. legislators on February 27, as indicated by a report by Reuters. Be that as it may, I will say on different surfaces, cardboard or plastic, it's more extended, thus we are taking a gander at this. The CDC will keep on examining yet accepts the danger of contracting coronavirus from bundles is still low. The WHO notes it is far-fetched, you would see the coronavirus persevere in the wake of being moved, gone and presented to various conditions. Best tip? Wash your hands. What are the side effects? The new coronavirus causes manifestations like those of recently distinguished sickness-causing coronaviruses. In presently distinguished patients, there is by all accounts a range of ailment, a huge number encounter gentle pneumonia-like indications, while others have a significantly more serious reaction. On January 24, esteemed clinical diary The Lancet distributed a broad examination of the clinical highlights of the ailment. As indicated by the report, patients present with fever, raised internal heat level, dry hack, weakness or muscle torment, breathing troubles. Less basic side effects include hacking up bodily fluid or blood, migraines, looseness of the bowels, kidney disappointment. As the ailment advances, patients additionally contract pneumonia, which kindles the lungs and makes them load up with liquid. This can be distinguished by a X-beam. How irresistible is the coronavirus? A generally shared Twitter string by Eric Feigl-Ding, a Harvard University disease transmission specialist, recommended the new coronavirus as atomic pandemic level awful in view of a measurement known as the R0, R0 esteem. This measurement decides the fundamental propagation number of an irresistible sickness. In the least difficult terms, the worth identifies with what number of individuals can be tainted by one individual conveying the infection. It was broadly censured before being erased. Irresistible ailments, for example, measles have a R0 of 12 to 18, which is amazingly high. The SARS plague of 2002-2003 had a R0 of around 3. A bunch of studies demonstrating the COVID-19 flare-up have given a comparative incentive with a range somewhere in the range of 1.4 and 3.8. Be that as it may, there is a lot of variety among studies and models endeavoring to foresee the R0 of novel coronavirus because of the continually changing number of cases. It appears to have chosen a figure around 2.2. In the beginning periods of understanding the malady and its spread, it ought to be focused on. These examinations are enlightening, however they aren't conclusive. They give a sign of the potential for the infection to move from individual to individual, yet we despite everything need more data about how the new infection spreads. A few specialists are stating it as the most irresistible infection at any point seen. That isn't right, McIntyre said. On the off chance that it was exceptionally irresistible, more irresistible than flu as proposed by a few, we ought to have seen hundreds, if not a great many cases outside of China at this point, given Wuhan as a significant travel center. China has recommended the infection can spread before manifestations present. Writing in The Conversation on January 28, McIntyre noted there was no proof for these cases up until this point, yet suggests youngsters could be irresistible without showing any side effects. This additionally makes air terminal screening less effective, in light of the fact that harboring the infection yet giving no indications could permit it to treacherously spread further. Would it be a good idea for you to make your own hand sanitizer? As superfluous frenzy encompassing the spread of the coronavirus has held customers, the racks have exhausted. In Australia, customers have hustled out to purchase up whatever they can: bathroom tissue, acetaminophen, likewise known as paracetamol, pasta and, obviously, hand sanitizer. As CNET wellness proofreader Sarah Mitroff reports, most places in the U.S. are additionally sold out of the last mentioned, as are numerous online stores. That is directed to broad reports that it's a smart thought to make your own hand sanitizer, yet specialists caution that you chance making a sanitizer that either isn't powerful or is excessively brutal. In CNET's Manual for DIY Hand Sanitizer, we likewise preclude utilizing hard alcohol. Plans that call for vodka or spirits ought to be stayed away from completely, in light of the fact that you need a high-proof alcohol to get the correct grouping of liquor by volume. That is on the grounds that most alcohol is blended in with water, so in the event that you blend a 80-proof vodka, which is the standard proof, with aloe, you'll have hand sanitizer that contains generally just 40% liquor. The option is to wash your hands. As the CDC and WHO keep on recommending, washing your hands with cleanser and water for around 20 seconds is probably the most ideal approaches to shield yourself from becoming ill at the present time. You ought to likewise abstain from contacting your face in the event that you can, as the infection can be moved into the body in the event that you've been in contact with somebody who's contaminated. Is there a treatment for the coronavirus? Coronaviruses are strong life forms. They're powerful at escaping the human invulnerable framework, and we haven't built up any solid medications or immunizations to annihilate them. Much of the time, well-being authorities endeavor to manage the manifestations. There is no perceived helpful against coronaviruses, said Mike Ryan, official chief of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, during a public interview on January 29. The essential goal in an episode identified with a coronavirus is to give sufficient help of care to patients, especially regarding respiratory help and multi-organ support. Prominently, in light of the fact that they are infections, coronaviruses are not vulnerable to antimicrobials. Antimicrobials are medications intended to battle microorganisms and don't harm the SARS-CoV-2 infection. There are no particular medications for COVID-19 up till now, however a number are underway including exploratory antivirals, which can assault the infection, and existing medications focused at different infections like HIV which have given some guarantee. Is there an antibody for coronavirus? Growing new antibodies requires some investment and they should be thoroughly tried and affirmed safe by means of clinical preliminaries before they can be routinely utilized in people. Anthony Fauci, chief of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in the U.S., has generally expressed an immunization is in any event a year to year and a half away. Specialists concur there's far to go yet. In any case, there is incredible advancement being made right now. Various immunization competitors have showed up in the time since COVID-19 was found. We've gathered all that we think about potential immunizations and current treatment alternatives that are being utilized far and wide. In building up an immunization that objectives SARS-CoV-2, researchers are taking a gander at the spike proteins strongly. These proteins, which are available on the outside of the infection, empower it to enter human cells where it can imitate and make duplicates of itself. Specialists have had the option to delineate projections in 3D, and research proposes they could be a practical antigen, a section that invigorates the human body's insusceptible framework, in any potential coronavirus antibody. The protein is pervasive in coronaviruses we've combated previously, as well, including the one that caused the SARS flare-up in China in 2002-2003. This has given specialists a head start on building immunizations against part of the spike protein and, utilizing creature models, they have just exhibited an insusceptible reaction. Outstandingly, SARS, which contaminated around 8,000 individuals and slaughtered around 800, appeared to run its course and afterward for the most part vanish. It wasn't an antibody that reversed the situation on the malady, but instead compelling correspondence among countries and a scope of instruments that helped track the sickness and its spread. We discovered that pestilences can be controlled without medications or antibodies, utilizing upgraded reconnaissance, case seclusion, contact following, PPE and contamination control measures, McIntyre said. The most effective method to lessen your danger of coronavirus. With affirmed cases currently observed over the globe, it's conceivable that SARS-CoV-2 may spread a lot further away from home than China. The WHO prescribes a scope of measures to shield yourself from getting the illness. In light of good hand cleanliness and great respiratory cleanliness, similarly you'd decrease the danger of getting influenza. The tail coronavirus does spread and taint people marginally distinctively to this season's flu virus, but since it prevalently influences the respiratory tract, the insurance measures are comparable. In the meantime, the U.S. State Department on January 30 gave a tourism warning with a dull message: don't head out to China. A previous admonition from the CDC exhorted individuals to maintain a strategic distance from superfluous travel. A Twitter string, created by the WHO, is beneath.